2, 1.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie from Wicked Queer. I'm the director of programming here, and we are here to talk to the director of 15 Years, one of my personal top favorite films that we've been screening this year. And we also have Matthias from the film festival as well, if you want to say hello. Are you putting on some leopard?
I thought about that. Hi everyone, I'm Matthias. I'm a programmer for Wicked Queer, and I'm putting on something more gay to fit the Q&A of this film. I hope you all got a chance to watch this wonderful film, and we have the director here with us to sort of answer the questions we have for it.
And we also have Amos here, who's in Boston, who reviews LGBTQ films. So we're super excited to have him here as well to kind of give his take on what he thought of his film. Are those all DVDs behind you?
Yes, that's about maybe a fifth of my collection.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It goes to the floor.
That's awesome. So why don't we get in here? I think I was the first one to see it on the team. And I know I said this, I had the staff pick. I think you saw that yesterday of kind of my feelings for the film, that I really just loved the story, how it was filmed. I loved the backdrop of Tel Aviv. But if you could kind of just talk about what your thoughts were of how, you know, this film came about and just the casting as well. Because I thought the two leads and the woman who played the best friend, I thought were like really, really great characters. If you want to just talk about the process.
So first, thank you for having me, and thanks for having the film in the festival. Really, this is amazing. I'll start, I guess, with the idea for the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I live in New York, but I go back home to Israel a lot. And in recent years, I mean, even in New York and everywhere, you see how the question of gay families, gay people or LGBT people having children has become more and more visible. And Israeli society is such the children are sanctified. I mean, the whole idea of family is such a powerful and present, such a strong presence in everyday life. And in recent years, I saw both friends of mine and just other LGBT people having children, and I started questioning the idea. This is a sort of a new, in the last 10, 15 years, a new topic that LGBT people deal with. Straight people dealt with that since the beginning of time. You know, I mean, the idea of getting married, having a family is almost, nobody questions it. I mean, it's the norm. And within the gay community, it has become the norm in recent years, but it's still relatively new. And I thought it would be interesting to sort of look into it. So that was one of the main reasons I wanted to explore this this topic. The other thing is really the sort of the general exploration of human character, of our flaws, and how it sometimes dictates our lives. The protagonist, Yoav, is this, you know, on paper he's amazing. He has everything. He has a healthy relationship. He's a good-looking guy. He has a healthy career. He's charismatic. He has a group of close friends. But there's something that sort of, there's this self-destructive motor that sort of guides his life in spite of himself. And I think we all have it. We all sort of have this baggage that we carry from our past experiences, our, you know, the scars that we carry for whatever reason. And sometimes there's, you know, we pull into one direction, but this baggage sort of pulls us the other direction. The tension between the two really always interested me. So I wanted to explore that. So I brought these, I wanted to bring these two topics up to the surface and see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, I know probably some other people disagree, but I personally always felt for him as the protagonist. I never disliked him. I know he is flawed in a lot of things
Yes.
that he did, was off-putting, but I always felt for him. And so can we talk a little bit about why he got to where he was and why that his finding out his best friend was pregnant really triggered, I feel like, kind of the catalyst for the rest of the movie? Because obviously he seems like somewhat of a narcissist for the last 15 years, but he's kept it at bay until kind of this thing I feel like really was the catalyst for what happens in the film.
Right. So first of all, Yoav, this character is he's not easy to like. I mean, he's a challenging guy. So he was able to live a very controlled life in the sense that he controlled everything around him. His relationship, he was this typical alpha male that lived a very rigid, controlled life. And then this thing, like you said, this pregnancy of his best friend sort of unraveled everything. And once that happened, everything came to pieces really fast. So he carries this scar of, among other things, of being rejected because of the tragedy with his mom and the separation anxiety and all those things. And he fears, I think his major fear is being hurt if he lets someone close in, if he loves someone unconditionally and lets someone love him unconditionally, eventually he will get hurt. So he keeps everyone at bay. And that's one major issue. And when his best friend announces that she's pregnant, it's something that he can't control. He had no knowledge of it, and he can't control it. And it's a completely different. It's a new experience for him that he's not ready to experience, because all of these issues come up. His childhood, his inability in his own mind to be a parent himself. And then the pressure from his boyfriend to perhaps become a parent. So all these things surface and really lead him into that self-destructive trip or route.
Amos, do you want to talk about what you thought about the film?
First of all, one of the things in response to what Yuval said, because Israel is such a new country, the importance of children cannot be overstated. You know, the Israelis feel that they must produce to continue to grow the population. And also because so many lives are lost in the various wars. And I think that's such an important part. When I moved to Israel in 1967, and I was there until 2005, it was a different country for gay people. It was a totally different country. And I was one of the litigants against the state of Israel in 1975 for domestic partnership rights for gay couples. And when we won that case, the entire nature of the country changed. Maybe not the entire country, shall we say Tel Aviv, perhaps, not the entire country. But watching this film reminded me so much of how much change has occurred in such a short period of time. You see, the skyline of Tel Aviv here is absolutely gorgeous. There was no skyline. I can remember when there was no skyline. And on the other hand, you've got scenes that are very, very seedy, in very seedy locations. So you constantly have this contrast between the two sides of gay life in Israel. On one hand, you know, I think that we see it in a sense as being something to be ashamed of. On the other hand, we see it as something to be very proud of. Dependent upon the circumstance and where that part of the film is taking place. It's interesting now you can walk in Tel Aviv and see guys walking down the street holding hands and kissing in public. I can remember before 1978, 79, everyone was in the closet. I mean, everyone was in the closet. And here you have quite an open situation and plus you had the fact that you have gays with money, which, you know, quite visibly live very, very well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I texted Matthias. I was like, "Do you see that apartment?" I was like, that outside deck. I was like, "Oh my god!"
It was very much.
Go ahead, please.
So I'm a Finnish carpenter for my day, so I do like carpentry in kitchens specifically. So I really love the fact that there were no like wall cabinets at all. It was just kind of like the cups were stored in the bottom cabinets, and it was just very like, it kind of helped like fully realize this like vision of like, oh, he's a high powered you know,
Yes. Yes.
owner of a company with a lot of money, and or it seemed that way.
Yeah, a lot of it was
And
smoke and mirrors. I mean,
oh, oh
the
yes.
designers did an amazing job, but like, you know.
I did have a couple of. First of all, I wanted to thank you for creating this film, because I do think that like same-sex couples or queer couples and children is a very kind of like hot topic right now. And I love that you kind of told the story of people who don't want that, because I feel like those people are kind of getting cast aside, to where, you know, like people who don't want children are like kind of being pressured if they're in like monogamous married relationships. So it was really, I think, to me, important to have that visibility. It was unfortunate that the character was such like I respected him for like sticking to his cores and what he believed in and not budging, but also like his toxicity was very just overbearing at time. But I actually wanted to ask, so Yaov is like this, you know, hyper successful person, and he's in this kind of like long-term relationship. Um, and like you said, he's an alpha male. Also in like all the scenes, and this is kind of like a personal, I wouldn't call it personal, just like an in-depth question. He's portrayed as a top. So I wanted to ask if you think that like him being portrayed as a top is like tied with him having toxic sort of personality traits, and how that like plays with the whole power dynamic of his character and you know, the things he does, because I feel like there's like a gay stereotype that tops are toxic and you know, jerks, and I just wanted to see if you like factored that in with his character in the film.
So first of all, I don't think he's a jerk. I mean, he's complex. You know, I love him. And I have to say, I really feel for him. He is really a victim of whatever it is that he can't, you know, release himself from. So, and I have to say, you know, for Alma, his best friend, she's a top as well in that perspective. I mean, she's the alpha female. So. And she's completely different. She's
such a crush on her.
You know, right?
Such a crush on her.
So Ruth, who plays her, is an amazing, incredible actress, and I saw it's amazing because we did some camera tests with a few actors and actresses, and we cast. So Udi, the guy who played Dan, was the first to be cast, and then it took a while to find Yoav, and then suddenly Oded, the actor, comes in, and his energy and that brooding, dangerous sort of, and yet very sensitive energy that came through right away. And he and Udi, who played Dan, had an amazing chemistry together. And then we had 4 actresses, and really the a day before the screen tests, I met Ruth for a different part, and 2 minutes into the meeting, I was like, that's her. That is her. And we brought her into the screen test, and she nailed it. And it was obvious that she has to play Alma. She was incredible. She's an incredible actress.
All 3 of them were amazing.
Yes.
I feel like
it's also interesting, you know, when you look at the physical colors of the 3 actors and you see these stark differences, yet they come together as best friends for a while at any rate. But I was very surprised to see Alma. Is she Yemenite? I assume she
no. She's Ethiopian. So there's a large Ethiopian community in Israel, and that's another thing. I wanted to be, in a sense, I mean, as far as we could, to be colorblind. I didn't want to tell her story from an Ethiopian point of view, as an immigrant or as a. Just as I didn't want to tell the story of Yoav and Dan, as I wanted to have their gayness or the fact that they're gay as just another aspect of their lives. It's not something that there's no coming out story. There's no horrible unacceptance story. It's just like these people who exist
Was she an immigrant before, like written as an immigrant before you actually met her?
No, so the part was sort of I didn't write it for an Ethiopian actress. I just wrote the part, but she really was fit. She fit the bill. There was a couple of lines that I had to change to fit the history, so it makes sense. Because the Jewish community from Ethiopia came to Israel in the late 70s, beginning of the 80s. So it just had to. She couldn't be his friend from birth. Where in the original script she was his friend from birth. So she came to school sort of later in his life. That was the only change to sort of make it believable. But it's a nuance that I think people in Israel or people who know the history will understand. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter.
Can we talk about the production a little bit? Like how long, was it all entirely filmed in Tel Aviv? How long was the production?
Yes, so we filmed, the principal shooting took 17 days in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv and Jaffa, which is adjacent to Tel Aviv. And then we did pickup shoots for 2.5 days, exactly a year later. So all in all, it took a year and a half to do. Yeah, and that was it was an incredible. It was a great experience because it's the first time I left Israel 27 years ago to work and live in New York, and so it's the first time I went back home to work, and it was an unbelievable experience. Everybody was so. Other than the fact that they're so talented and amazingly like giving their talent, their abilities. It was an amazing experience for me. Amazing.
I feel like we get a lot of very well done short films and obviously features from Israel specifically. I feel like the film scene is great. Like what would you say about the film scene there?
I think it's amazing. I mean, in recent years, even film and television. I mean, there's so many TV series in recent years that have come from Israel, like Fauda, In Treatment. Like from years ago at HBO was originally an Israeli TV series. And now there's a new show called Tehran that is, there's a lot of talk around it. So yeah, they're amazingly talented. And our boys on HBO a couple months ago. So there's amazing film. And now there's an Israeli actress, Shira Haas, who was nominated for an Emmy for her portrayal in a series called Unorthodox.
She was amazing in that.
She was amazing, and she's nominated for an Emmy, so it's incredible. So it's amazing. So yeah, so there's a very vibrant, active, talented writing, directing, acting community in Israel. Small, but very active.
I think it's very. I mean, every time we get a short, it's always like the production value and stuff, even if like it's from college, I feel like it's just really, really well done.
Look, it was guerrilla. I mean, what we did, I mean,
you would never know that either.
Yeah, it looks incredible, but like if you see behind the scenes, it's like, wow. Yeah.
Take a look at the extras if you have the DVD. There's a wonderful interview between Yuval and your that absolutely gives you a key to his character and how he developed the character and came to play it. You can't help but fall in love with both of them as you watch this. Yuval, you didn't hear that, did you? I didn't fall in love.
I did. I like silently drank my water. Thank you.
So when I reviewed the film, you know, to me it was very, very personal because like the characters in the film, I had been in a long-term relationship that did not break up because of children, but because I was coming back to the States for a 2-year visiting professorship. And then I ended up staying and not going back. But we went through many of the similar problems that two men living together go through in a society that isn't quite so sure they want you there. Although in Yuval's film, it was a much more open society than the one that I lived in. But, you know, marital problems are marital problems. And we all deal with them in some way.
Right.
And like the relationship in his film, mine also ended. But Yuval asked me when I first spoke to him, did I miss Israel? Remember what my answer was? Every second of every day. is something very special about the country.
I want to go back to what Matteo said earlier about gays having children and the idea that you need to be accepted. That there's almost a sense that you have to follow certain rules in order to be accepted within your own community. And one of the criticisms that Yoav in the film has about kids is that it has become the next thing to have in order to be part of the community, which is an interesting thing that I also wanted to explore. The sort of almost the need to be, because you, Amos, talked about relationships. So I'm trying to marry the two topics. It's almost a need to adapt to heteronormative behavior in order to be accepted. And then what happens to the whole queer experience, like the being completely original or different, or that sort of is, I feel sometimes is cast aside a little bit. But because since it's sort of new, there's an adjustment, and I'm sure there's going to be, the level of it'll adjust itself somehow, and it will invent itself in a new way that will be, I guess, accepted by everybody. I'm not sure.
Can we talk about the ending a little bit? Because I think a lot of people probably assumed he was going to stay,
right,
or not leave in the manner that he did, and then him just doing that. Like, what was your reasoning for that?
So there's two answers for this. One is I think he had to leave. I mean, there's no other way. I think Yoav, the journey that he goes through, at the end, he realizes that in order for him to live his authentic self, he has to, that cliche, if you love someone, let them go. He had to let Dan go and let Dan perhaps have a better experience with someone who's healthier. And he wouldn't, because Yoav could go back and start living the same life, perhaps, and can control it for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, but he knows that eventually he's gonna fall again into that pattern. So only if he embraces who he really is at the end, which is represented by the homeless person that we see in his dreams, only then can he start and, I guess, heal himself. But in order to do that, he has to do it on his own and let Dan live his life, and that's why he leaves. And I'm optimistic. Like, people ask me, what's going to happen to the three of them? So Alma, obviously, there's a happy ending because she has a family and she'll continue to live her life. Dan, will find someone perhaps like Eviatar, the young guy that he meets at the bar.
Much younger man.
Younger, healthier, more open, more receptive, more communicative, everything that Yoav isn't. And perhaps will live a great life. But I think Yoav also has a happy ending because finally he finally embraces who he really is. It might not be a great person, but he is who he is authentically, and he can live that life. And maybe from that point he can perhaps make changes, heal, but he has to embrace it before.
That totally. What about could you just touch upon the homeless guy in the dreams? So what was the symbolism with that? And plus a lot of the running scenes. I would like to know more about those.
Okay, so running, it's sort of straightforward. It's almost like running away from yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, or I don't know if you're a runner, but it's such a way to disconnect yourself from everything, from the noise in your head. You just go and do whatever. So it's an escape in a way, both physically and mentally. The homeless person represented, I think, your biggest fears, because I think you have feared that he'll end up loveless, homeless, with nothing, with no ties and nothing, and that's why the homeless person sort of comes back in his dreams and nightmares. And that's what the homeless person represented. Sort of Yoav's fears, and then almost like self-prophecy. If it's not necessarily maybe he won't live in the streets, but he'll be like an island. He'll live on his own with no connections and no ties, because he can't. I mean, the second he's committed to someone or ties himself to someone, he opens himself up to the possibility of getting hurt. And I think that scar is so big that he won't allow himself to feel that again.
I love his apartment and just how, like, what it looked like, even having like the two cushions not like fully on the couch and stuff, and just how minimalist you made it, and how like the mattress on the floor, and just how just such a different from like where he was prior with his partner. Yeah.
Like once he gave up, he gave up. Like
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you guys have more questions? Oh, we do have a question. What makes this film uniquely Israeli versus a story that was told by an American filmmaker?
Told by an American filmmaker?
Yeah, so what would make yours uniquely Israeli compared to if this was made by an American
filmmaker? Oh, I see. That's a great question. So I think, I don't know how an American filmmaker would make this film. I think the directness of the characters in their interaction with each other is very Israeli. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that the whole issue, like Amos said earlier, of Israelis having children and the children and the next generation being so important, but someone from Italy would say the same thing, or anywhere. So I can't really sign off to that 100%. I would say the first thing would be the sort of the directness, the forwardness of the interaction between the characters, which to me is very Israeli. Yep.
And the language.
And the language, of course. Yeah.
But there were certain nuances that we have in Hebrew that just were not translatable.
Like what, for example?
I don't remember now. It's been a month since I've seen the film.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
a whole list of nuances that we can't translate, but we can't even say them aloud.
Right. Yeah, but I'm sure it happens with every foreign film.
Every language.
A different language, something is lost.
Weren't you talking about that with the Brazilian one, the short film, Mateus, that something didn't translate over?
Oh, right. Yeah, the two words. It was saudade and solidão. I actually remembered another question I had. Would you talk more about Yao's relationship with his father and why it was so cold and kind of like it felt like he was distant, and was that just like from the death of his mother, or was it like something else?
Right. So actually one of the things that I heard was that it wasn't really clear it was clear that there was an issue with the father, but it wasn't sort of flashed out. It wasn't clear. And there's actually a monologue that we shot, that we took out, that sort of clarifies some of it. So like I said before, we all carry our own baggage. It doesn't really matter what it is, but sometimes it dictates our lives, or it certainly affects or has an effect on our actions, thoughts, emotions, whatever. So I sort of I want to keep it vague, because I didn't want people to necessarily say, oh, it's because of that reason. I wanted to give it as a fact that we all have it. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. But the backstory is, yes, that the mom dies when he's a kid. He's very hurt by that, and the assumption, or the little hints that I gave, was that his father wasn't there emotionally for him at that very critical time, and he resented that all the way to the end. And he refused to visit him when he was in a home, and sort of like he was never able to really close that circle with him.
Mm-hmm.
I just had another comment as far as, I don't know if it was his first line of dialogue, but when he's like, obviously what the baby's sex is, and he's like, is that a boy or a girl? And I just feel like, from just even like that, like you just know who he is. And I always felt for him. I don't think Matthias were on the same page with that, but I did. Like, I think how he played him, there was just something about him that you did feel for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I mean, I have to say that a lot of it is to the credit of Oded, who plays him, who really was able to find the balance and not playing as a cliche of either an alpha male or jerk, or he was always able to lace that with the insecurity and with the sort of the tenderness. And I think, I mean, I was very lucky that he was able to do that. You know, that
Did you mention that they're both of the actors are straight men?
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I don't know how important that really
Not that
is.
important, but it's interesting. I thought it was Odette especially who became so gay for me. I mean, not so much in behavior, but just in thought. But the kind of thoughts that he had, I think we've all had at some time. And then when I watched that interview between you and him, and I saw this, he did an amazing job of portraying a man with problems.
Yeah. But it's funny because when he read the script, when he came for an audition, he says, "This is about me." I mean, this is really, so it's the sort of the kind of the burden, the emotional burden that Yoav carries is something that I think many people carry, regardless of, you know.
Yeah, I looked him up and I watched a couple of other performances that he did, and I was just as amazed with them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great actor.
I just wanted to clarify my, like, you know, I was Team Dan, but then in the end, I again, like, I respected Yao for doing what he did, although, like, throughout the whole movie, I didn't like him. But I think, like, you know, being more, like, reflecting on that, like, what would that have looked like had they gotten back together? Like, he would have had to compromise. And, you know, it's not a small issue. It's a major lifestyle change that he would have had to compromise to. And what would that have looked like? So, like, I think ultimately he did make the right choice. I just think, like, the delivery could have been, like his delivery of, like, that to Dan. Like, hey, I don't want a baby. I'm sorry. Versus, like, fucking
oh,
him.
the party scene? The party
scene, I
was like, ooh!
I mean, honestly, I love that scene. I, like, cackled because I don't think babies are cute when they're born. Everyone lies when they say they are. They do look like, what did he say? He's like a Star Wars character?
No, the character from Lord of the Ring.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
I couldn't stop laughing at that because it's true. Like, young babies, they just look, you know, like little aliens, and they get cuter when they get a little pudgier. But he was just being honest.
And a dick.
So yeah, that scene was great.
Yeah.
We have another question. What filmmakers have inspired you? Is one of our questions.
Wow. Now I have to. So whatever answer I'm going to answer, it's going to sound so pretentious. So Ingmar, I love Ingmar Bergman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his character study and is just I think incredible. And there are many films that inspired me. Like, for example, like this particular film, I was really inspired by Weekend.
Oh. Andrew Hay, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the first idea was like, all right, so these guys meet, they fall in love, there's amazing chemistry, they're both very vocal, so one of them is very political, whatever. What happens 15 years later when they're in a relationship? That was sort of the trigger for this film. But I love that film. I thought it was so honest and so heartbreaking as well. But
I wrote a paper in school about that film. It was a favorite of mine as well. It was just it was real, you know, that it was like, this is what happens, and you, like, you know, life moves on.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, any other answer would, I think him, John Cassavetes. I like old school. John Cassavetes was an amazing film director. Yeah.
Do you have anything coming up?
I'm sorry?
Oh, Amos, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, if you want to have a look at how gay film in Israel has evolved, you have to go back. I have to put in a plug for the 70s. For a young director at that time named Amos Gutman, who made a movie called Nagua, the first time that a gay film was made for the general public.
Right.
And it starred a young actor named Jonathan Siegel.
Right.
Went on to be in Schindler's List and is now a director himself and a former student of mine, incidentally. So I can claim that fame. But going to Amos Gutman through the years and seeing how Israeli film, and especially LGBTQ film, has developed is an amazing experience. And many of these films are available today. You just go on Amazon and do a search for Israeli LGBT film, and you'll get maybe 60 titles.
Yeah, there's
amazing to see how much has come out of Israel in such a short time.
Ethan Folks. I mean, there's others. There are many
others. Omer Hyman, for example, is another who has been at the festival before. By the way, he's shown his films at the festival before, and he has a new film out that he's submitting for next year.
By the way, Amos Gutman, I was a student of his many years ago.
What a beautiful guy that was.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, incredible guy.
That's awesome. So do you have any next film coming up? Or
yes, so I'm working on, I'm actually doing two things. I'm working on a new film that that is not, at this point, not going to be LGBT. Maybe it will become that, but it's another sort of study of an event and how it affects it's a family, and the matriarch is going through an event and how it sort of unravels everything. So the theme is sort of betrayal between people, betrayal of our minds, betrayal of bodies.
And where will that be filmed?
So right now, I think it'll be an Israeli film. I think it'll be Israeli as well, but I'm not sure yet. We'll see what happens. I mean, this is such a weird time to talk about this, but yeah, this is what I want to do. And the other thing is I'm developing a series based on 15 years. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll be the two leads.
We'll see. Let's see what happens.
Oh yeah, we get to see it.
Here we go from 15 to 45 years. Then.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm excited for that.
We'll see what happens.
Can I just say one more thing? When I first saw the film, and I didn't know Yuval at all, but I felt like I had to contact him because I was so in love with the film. And within a time frame of a chat on Facebook, we became really good friends. It was interesting. And so, and now I plan to eventually get to New York to meet him also. But I just want to say that he's one of the warmest people that I've come into contact with on Facebook in a very, very long time. And we had a wonderful conversation about the film, and I'm going to do my best to get it promoted in any kind of way that I can. I just think it's such an important film for everyone to see.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I totally agree. And I think people across audiences, no matter what, really, I feel like has resonated with a lot of people, especially on our team. So I'm super glad that you submitted to our festival.
Thank you. Yeah, it was amazing. And I actually love Boston. I mean, regardless.
Yay.
Are you all originally from Boston?
I'm originally from Massachusetts, not from Boston.
Okay.
I am from Brazil. I've been in the USA since 2000, so like 20 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah. Born in Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, there's like so much really awesome queer cinema coming out of Brazil too. Like our Latinx program is always jam-packed with like Brazilian.
It really is. It's always, I always love that. Yeah.
I mean, Brazilian cinema in general is very interesting. I mean, it's very, very potent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reflects the culture. There's like this kind of like sensitivity / like depth that like is ingrained in the culture, and I think it like reflects onto the filmmaking. That I think it really kind of creates these sort of very interesting films for sure.
Nice.
Do you guys have any more questions?
I have a thingy on the chats. It says 6. What does that mean? Is that you guys? No.
Yeah, but I've been reading that we've gotten questions in the chat. That's what I've been asking. People have been
Oh, I
texting.
see.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
texting
Okay,
and questions. Yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you doing this Q&A. Obviously, I wish we could meet in person and we could have saw this on the
Yeah.
screen, but
Hopefully next
again,
year.
yes,
Yeah.
next year. Hopefully, I don't know.
That means he would have to finish that new film.
Yes.
No.
April 21, April 2021, yeah, is when hopefully we'll be having it in person. But yeah, we look forward to, whatever you make next. If 15
Thank you.
years happens to become a series, that would be amazing.
Now I have to go back. Now I have to actually go and work on it because I've,
Yeah, now we're forcing you to work on it.
Now, now
Because
it's
everyone wants it.
I don't know, but now it's out there. Now I have to deliver. Great.
Yeah.
Well, good things take time,
Yeah.
so no rush. Just
All right. I'll keep that in mind.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
15 years can be watched through 11 p.m. tomorrow, I believe. We'll still be screening, so people out there, please tune in and watch it. It's one of my favorite films from the festival. It's amazing. So if you guys haven't watched it, please take a look and watch it. Amos, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
As
It
always,
was great.
I miss you terribly.
I know. Self hugs. I've been doing
Yes.
this a lot.
Thank you, guys. It was an amazing experience. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Charles, for being our awesome tech guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
You
Thank
too.
you. You too.
Wow.
Bye.
Wonderful
It was great
Saturday.
meeting you.
Nice meeting you.